All right, welcome into One of One Sports. It's a Monday, so I've got another college basketball reaction. We had some really good games this week. You can see we had Michigan State take down Michigan, Houston took down Iowa State, Tennessee beat A&M, and so many more games took place. We're going to go through each of the power conferences and a few other notable results and just kind of walk through everything that was impactful that happened this weekend. Starting off in the ACC, I think the biggest thing was Duke's domination over Illinois. I believe the final was 110-67, just complete domination, and I think it really kind of silenced any of the doubters of Duke. And I'm not saying there were many. Duke was, I think, ranked third in the country, has been a one seed for a while. They beat Auburn, who everyone has as the number one seed. But I do think there were people saying, well, like we can't really tell how good Duke has been because the ACC is like a weak conference and they're beating up just inferior competition. So to verse a pretty solid team in the Big Ten that has competed against the top teams of the Big Ten and fared fine, even won some big games, and to beat them how they did was kind of shocking to me. I thought Duke would win. I didn't think they would win like that. So that was pretty crazy, and it showed. I think they should probably jump Florida in the rankings, I would think, up to number two. But the domination just silenced any doubters of Duke. And then Wake Forest and SMU took some major hits on the bubble. Wake Forest fell to NC State, and that's now their second loss in 4 games against a team they should win. And for a team that the margins are as tight as they are for them on the bubble, you can't be losing these games like they did to Florida State and now to NC State. Yes, they're not easy games on the road to NC State, but it's a game you have to win to get into the tournament at this point, or at least probably have to win. And then SMU had a great chance against Clemson at home and could not get the job done. So both these teams take a hit, and then North Carolina stays alive as they continue to win these games, and their other, colleagues in the ACC don't do it. Looking ahead here, SMU doesn't really have anything left on the schedule to boost their resume. So I think to get in, they're going to need a good run in the ACC tournament. Wake Forest, you still have Duke on the road, but that's not necessarily a positive as a game you're probably not going to win. And then North Carolina has Duke at home to end the season. And again, that's a really tough game. At least you have it at home, kind of a rivalry. I think North Carolina is more likely to beat Duke than Wake Forest is. And I also think North Carolina is now the most likely of these teams to make the NCAA tournament. And to add on to that, I think North Carolina is also the most dangerous of these teams if they were to get in because of they do have they don't lack for talent. Now it doesn't always been applied the best, but there's definitely talent on the roster to make a run. Moving on to the Big Ten, where the biggest game of the weekend took place Friday night, where Michigan State went into Michigan. Well, they're both from Michigan, but you know what I mean, and defeated the Wolverines. Pretty dominant second half by the Spartans. In the first half, they got out to an early lead, and then Michigan kind of controlled it from there for the rest of the first half. Danny Wolf looked great, had a crazy behind the back pass. He had a step back three, and it looked like Michigan was rolling. I felt good about my pick that I made for Michigan to win. And I thought, yeah, they looked like they're in control. They looked like the better team. And then the second half, it did not go well. Michigan's offense stalled. The Spartans' defense played really well. They had a little bit of luck on their side as they were shooting a bit better than normal. Who Fears hit the banked in three. But you're going to have plays like that happen in a game. And now Michigan State moves up to number one, or to the top team in the Big Ten Conference standings wise, which I'll talk about more in a second. And then more importantly, or arguably more importantly, maybe not, but you move up seeding wise as you're now, is it a 2 or 3 seed? I forget what Joe Lenardi moved them up, but whatever they were before, they moved up a line, so they could be 2 or 3 now. And Michigan, I think, remains a 4 seed. The big winners, though, are Oregon and Indiana. Indiana probably the biggest as a team that's on the outside looking for the bubble. Getting a win over Purdue was something you had to have, and you got it done. So now you keep your hopes of making the tournament alive. And then Oregon, you've been on a winning streak. You're pretty safe in terms of making the tournament. But I think it just helps the team out to have a run like that at the end of the game where you're down big against Wisconsin the whole game, and then the whole team just plays well together. Everything clicks. You come back. Shellstad makes a big shot. Biddle plays really well, and you win that game against Wisconsin. on the road. I think that's huge. I think it can spark the team to maybe regain that early season form where we saw them beat Alabama and Texas A&M. I think there's one more other like top team they beat too, where I think they were ranked in the top 10 at the beginning of the year. This can maybe like spark you to regain that form at the right time towards the end of the season. The losers of those games, Purdue and Wisconsin, pretty much eliminated themselves from the title race. So as I mentioned, Michigan State now number one, but it's really just a two-horse race now between Michigan and Michigan State. Wisconsin dropping another game, Purdue dropping another game. They're pretty much out of it unless Michigan and Michigan State both collapse. So the last game of the season, a rematch at Michigan State between Michigan and Michigan State, is probably going to be for the conference, I would imagine, unless perhaps Michigan State's already secured it by then. But I think in all likelihood, the conference comes down to that final game, which is going to be great. You got a rivalry game, everything on the line for the Big Ten title, to get to hang a banner. I think that'd be really fun. And I think it's pretty likely to happen at this point. So that's another major takeaway. The Big 12, Houston, I think, has just continued to boost their chances of getting that final one seed. I think Auburn has secured a one seed. I think Duke is pretty secure in a one seed. I think Florida is probably going to get it, but not a lock. And then Alabama, Houston, Tennessee, I think that last one seed is kind of up in the air. And you can throw Florida in there because I think Florida is actually behind Alabama by most of the bracketologists. I just think Alabama is more likely to drop games than Florida is. And now with Houston taking, I think, a 3-game edge in the Big 12 standings, they're going to be the one seed there. You beat Iowa State for another great win. You've got another opportunity tonight against Texas Tech. And with the way they're playing, I could definitely see them winning that game, getting revenge for Texas Tech upsetting them earlier in the season. And I think it's just all coming together for Houston. Maybe the best team Kelvin Sampson has had, certainly one of them. And I think, they have a pretty good shot of moving up to that one line, as I'm skeptical that 3 SEC teams are going to get a one seed. I think it's probably just going to be 2. And if a team's going to take that spot, I think Houston is the most likely team to do so. Then BYU upsets U of A. So I think they have, I'm not going to say locked in because they could lose the rest of these games, but I think they're pretty safe in terms of the bubble now. Getting a win like that on the road, that's a big resume booster. They played really well. They shot the 3-ball really well. Got a little bit fortunate as the end as they kind of blew the game and the referees bailed them out at the last call. If you saw it, probably wasn't a foul. Ends up getting free throws to win the game. It wasn't a foul, but they played well up to that whole game to give them that opportunity. And, the game's never decided on one play. They had to do everything leading up for that to give them a chance. And then they were a bit fortunate, got the win. And now your bubble chances, or you're kind of off the bubble for now, looking probably more like a 10 seed than an 11. And then Arizona, you drop a line, probably a 4 seed now instead of a 3, which does hurt a little bit. And then Iowa State, I think, even though losing to Houston was still really impressive because you were missing Keyshawn Gilbert, you were missing Curtis Jones, your 2 leading scorers, and we saw this team is still very good with Lipsy, with Momcilovic, with Jefferson, even in foul trouble most of the game, still gave Houston problems. And when this team is fully healthy, just reminded me of how good they can be. Whether they're going to be a 3 seed or a 4 seed, they're probably, or maybe even a 2 seed. 1 seed's probably out of the question, and it's likely just a 2 or a 3. They're going to be probably the best team from either of those lines, as I think this is a 1 seed caliber team that's just had some bad injury luck and a weird down stretch in the middle of the year. But at their best, they're as good as anyone in the country. Now, finally, well, not finally, we have a little bit more after this, but the SEC is our final power conference. And my main takeaway was Alabama and Tennessee both keep the number 1 seed hopes alive. Alabama was down early to Kentucky, but came back and ended up winning comfortably. They shot the 3-ball really well. They tend to rely on that a lot. And down the stretch, they made some clutch threes. Sears made one. Youngblood made one. Maybe made 2. And then Tennessee played a really competitive, really good game against Texas A&M, back and forth. And Zakai Ziegler made big shots. And this is the second game in like a week span, because the Vanderbilt game, he took over in the second half to win them that game. And this is the second straight week where he's been more aggressive in the second half, and has been able to lead Tennessee to win. And then obviously Chaz Lanier was the best player for them, scoring 30, hitting a ton of threes. And when he's playing like that and the offense gets going, we know how good the defense is, and they look like one of the best teams in the country. It's more about the concerns of them doing that consistently offensively. But the defense was really good, gave A&M, some problems. A&M still played relatively well, but A&M was at home, and you were able to go in there and get a win. That's a major resume boost for them, and you're in that mix with Florida, with Alabama for the 1 seed. So yeah, the 1 seed hopes are alive there. And then Vanderbilt, Oklahoma, and Arkansas all get top 25 wins, and they're all bubble teams. Arkansas beats a Missouri team that was rolling, having just beaten having just beaten Alabama. You win that game. That's huge for them. Oklahoma, you beat Mississippi State, who is ranked. Vanderbilt, you beat Ole Miss, who was ranked. Now Ole Miss probably won't be ranked anymore. Mississippi State may fall out. I'm not sure. Don't know what the AP is going to do there. But nevertheless, 3 ranked wins by these teams to boost their bubble chances. And then on the flip side of that, Texas loses to South Carolina, who's the only school in the SEC that hadn't gotten a conference win, and one of only 2 schools to not be in the mix for the tournament. And Texas just got handled by South Carolina. That hurts them. Now, they were probably the top of this group of 5 teams in terms of likelihood to make the tournament before that. So it's not like a death blow. Like it would have been worse if Georgia, Arkansas suffered this loss. Texas already had a more margin for error than them, but it's still a big blow. And then Georgia, I never expected them to beat Auburn on the road, and they played a really competitive game, better than I thought they would, but still suffering another loss. And you have a pretty bad record against quad 1 teams. It's getting less and less likely Georgia's going to be able to make the tournament, especially when you consider the difficulty of the upcoming schedule, still having to play Florida. Now, on the other side, you could say, well, they still have opportunities to make it up. They do, but they haven't proven that they can do a lot with those opportunities. And then, of course, there's always a chance they make a run in the SEC tournament. But right now, I'd say they're the least likely these 5 teams to get in. And right now, I'd lean that they don't, unfortunately for them. Now, finally, just some other teams to mention. St. Mary's swept Gonzaga in the season series, which was huge for them. And it's kind of concerned. Gonzaga's lost a lot of games to top teams, and they just don't look like a team that's going to threaten very much during March. St. John's beat Connecticut and looks, especially since Marquette lost again, the Big East is pretty much locked up, and it kind of already was. And then more importantly, St. John's pretty much, or not locked up, but they looking pretty safe for that 3 seed. And then Utah State got a big win over San Diego State to stay alive in the race to win the Mountain West over New Mexico, which should be a fun race. And all of these 3 teams are very good, and have a chance to make a deep run in March. Those are all my takeaways from the weekend of college basketball. Let me know if you guys had different takeaways, if there's anybody I missed, or if you disagreed with anything, make sure to leave it in the comments down below. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to leave a like and subscribe. I thank you all for watching. Until next time.